absolute meltdown because there's too much happening on it. She sounds like an airplane all the time, super stressed. So with that being said, going back to, we're going to treat this like as a master class, but before we get into like the nitty gritty of SEO, I'm really interested in the fact that you've been with the same firm for over 6 years, because I think that that's really rare in this day and age. We see a lot of agency hopping, a lot of job hopping, and you've not only stayed with the same agency, but in the same vertical. So can you talk to us a little bit about like what makes Elevated special to you? Why have you stuck around? What is the culture like? Talk to us about that really quick.
Yeah, well, Elevated is, when I started, we were maybe like 10 people. So, and everyone had been working together for years. And now I'm really grateful that I can be included in that circle of Elevated as a team of professionals who've been working together for almost a decade. But that wasn't the case when I first arrived. I was the new girl, and I felt like the new girl for such a long time. But because it is such a small agency, I think boutique by design is a phrase that we use somewhere on our website. Everyone who works for the agency gets a lot of exposure, gets a lot of experience on all the accounts. And I think that's, one of the big reasons why I was able to continue to grow and move up so quickly. They're really focused on growing out the skill set of the employees that they have. And we're always looking for opportunities to promote from within, grow from within. When I came on, the idea was that for us to grow and for me to move up, I'd have to build a team under me. And so that was expressed to me early on. When I joined, we're a startup. I don't think we're a startup anymore because we've all been together for so long. But yeah, that was expressed to me, and I was on board. They were very clear about what Elevated was and what was going to be expected from me if I wanted to continue on there. And I was ready for that challenge. And so staying in the same vertical for a long time, I know a lot about SEO, but I also have a lot to learn about the other marketing services that we provide too. And it's not only just about the fields or industry that I'm working with. It's not just about SEO. It's also about learning how to work with people, how to collaborate, how to communicate, how to delegate is a big one for me. So, there's always going to be opportunities to learn something. I think if you ever feel like you know everything you can know in a certain position or in your role in your company, this isn't for you anymore. Move on, find a new company. But for me, I've been able to continue growing and learning with Elevated, so I've stayed.
I love that. And the last thing that I want to say for, the benefit of everybody that's listening here is I want to just highlight a couple of things. Number one, reading the writing on the wall, kind of like if you want to grow within the company, that means that you build a team underneath you. Mentorship, guys, like that's what we're always talking about, like learning so that you can give to the next group of people coming up underneath you, and training them to support you to grow. And the second thing that I really want to just take a double look at is, as she's grown, as Jasmine's grown through her roles, she's been, a strategist, a manager, and now a director. And even though that scope of work, like if you have like a pie chart, right, of like the doing versus the managing or the client facing, notice that she said she's still doing. She still has deliverables. She's still in there. It's the same thing with me. I'm still in social media posts. I'm still client facing all the time. So as you grow, the capacity for what you can take on has to grow, but that doesn't mean you get to step away from doing the things. In fact, I find when people start to step away from doing the things, they become unrelatable, because especially in an industry like digital marketing, things change so fast. So if you're not in it, you are not the best advisor to your clients or your partners. So I really want to underscore that as an expectation moving forward. Like as your role grows, yeah, your management capacity, your strategy capacity grows, but you're still going to have to be a doer. And that's just a core tenet of this company for sure. And it sounds like Elevated as well. So with that, I'm actually going to put myself on mute, and Jasmine, I'm going to figure out how to give you sharing capacity in just a second here. And then I'm going to turn it over to you. You ready to go?
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. Let me turn on sharing options, and you should have ability to share screen.
Okay. Cool. So I have this up, and like I said, I have this deck prepared, but you guys, please feel free. We don't have to stick with this. If you have a question, just take yourself off mute and let me know, because if you do like a hand raise or something, there's a chance you might not see it. But let's get started. This deck, I made it for people who really, they don't know what SEO is. So here's what we have. And these are the questions that I hope to answer to as much capacity as we can within an hour. I'll be honest, the first time that I ran through this deck, I made this deck specifically for a 4-hour presentation. So we're gonna try to get through as much as we can. We can skip the introductions because I think Amber did a great job. Like SEO is not the only thing I do. I have other hobbies as well. So don't feel like you have to be a total nerd to get into SEO. But what is SEO? So SEO, search engine optimization, it's really just about trying to get your website, your online business, your online presence, visibility within major search engines. So in the US, the biggest one is going to be Google. Actually, worldwide, it's going to be Google, but there is also Bing, there is also Yahoo, DuckDuckGo. But what we want to do with SEO is that we want to define the keywords that we want to get visibility for, and then start to show up in the results when searchers are entering those terms. And search can occur in many ways. I think the one that you guys will think of most is going to be web search. So going to google.com, or maybe you don't go to google.com. I actually don't know anyone who goes to google.com anymore because we just have the search in our browser already. There's also mobile search, and then there is also voice search. And these are all, there are different ways to optimize for each of these, but typically right now, especially if you are optimizing for voice search, you're pretty well optimized for mobile search. And if you're well optimized for mobile search, you're pretty well optimized for web search. And right now with, for me at least, with a lot of our clients getting most of their traffic on desktop, we still optimize for mobile search. Not too many of our clients are trying to get visibility in voice right now. So I don't deal with that very, very often. Okay, so why does search matter? Because a lot of people are doing it. So obviously, if people weren't performing searches, then SEO wouldn't still be alive and kicking. There is this phrase that I hope you guys have never heard, but I'm going to tell you anyway. People like to say that SEO is dead, and it's totally not true. If search was dead, then I would be out of a job, and you guys would not have the questions or the interest in even having me speak with you today. Let's see, I'll skip through some of these because I know that we're short on time and we don't quite have 4 hours, and we'll get into the how do you do it. So we at Elevated take a dual approach to SEO, where we look at on-page optimization and off-page optimization. And based on what your survey responses are, it does look like you guys are mostly concerned with on-page optimization, which makes sense too, because on-page optimization is usually what people are thinking about when it comes to SEO. These are all the keyword-centric metrics, the keyword research, which term should I have in my copy, how much content should I be writing, how many pages should I have. These are the types of questions that are usually in line with on-page optimization. So we are usually looking at the non-branded keywords that a client is going to be qualified to rank for. So if we have a company like Nike, we're not necessarily going to try to optimize their website for Nike. They're going to do really well for the keyword Nike, but we would want to optimize them for keywords like sneakers, apparel, hoodies, sweats. So we're looking at the non-branded keywords so that we can attract users who might not already be familiar with their brand. When we're doing that, we also want to be aware that having multiple pages that are going after the same keyword can sometimes shoot ourselves in the foot, because now we're giving Google lots of options to choose from for a singular target, and they have to make that decision of which page is going to rank better. So it's a better approach to just have a singular page that's optimized really well for that target keyword that we want to go after. I do want to take a moment to pause here because I feel like I have been moving pretty quickly. And do you guys have any questions so far for me?
I wanted to just touch on something really quick too. When we talk about and you might get into this, but we talk about on page, you've got some things here on the left-hand side, including title tag, meta description, and alt tag. Will you talk about that?
Yes, I will. Cool. Okay. And so I actually feel like you guys might be interested in this one because getting some real hands-on experience in SEO was a question that we had, and also how do we incorporate SEO into a customer's website. So when we're talking about a website, you know, SEO can be inserted into a lot of areas. When we come into a new website development project, we usually call that pre-production SEO. And so we might give input on how the website is structured, which pages or what pages the website should have, or if they already have a sitemap prepared, we'll identify which pages are going to be the SEO target pages. So the example that I have here is a website called For Native Poppies. This is a local flower shop here in San Diego. If you guys aren't familiar, it's really cute. Buy something for your mom or your sister, girlfriend, or your best friend. But Native Poppy, as the example here, they have their shop menu about weddings, events. Knowing that they're a floral shop, the types of pages that we might target for optimization is going to be their homepage, because that's kind of their catch-all. And then also their shop and their different products or service pages. We won't necessarily target their about page, contact, meet the team, because that's all very branded content. Meet the team page, usually the keywords that those will rank for are just going to be the team members' names. And then other pages that we could target are this weddings page, a la carte, full service, because again, those are service pages, and then their events pages, because there is an element there where we just want to get visibility, draw users in to register. So that is what we are looking to do. So when we're considering a website like nativepoppy.com, we do want to ask ourselves a set of questions. What is the website? What does it provide? What is the primary objective? And especially when we're talking about search. So when we go back to the menu, the primary objectives here are to get users to these shop pages to make a purchase, or to get them to these events pages to register, or get them to the weddings pages so that they can reach out and get a consultation. Okay, so when we start considering of these pages, what do we want them to rank for? How do we want to optimize them? We do want to discover what each of the pages, specifically what the product or service being provided on that page is, or what the information on the page is. So in the case of Native Poppy, that's going to be around flowers, floral arrangements, potentially delivery, if that's something that they do. And so there are a lot of different keyword tools that can be used to identify what these keywords might be. Typically, we start with a set of seed keywords or seed key phrases. In this case, that seed phrase was flowers. And then we can narrow it down from there. So as we go through this process, we might not include something like Mother's Day flowers just because we don't have a specific page for that on the website. As we get closer to Mother's Day, though, we might want to recommend that they build a page. That way we can target that traffic. But because that's a very seasonal keyword, we don't necessarily need to have it year round. Okay. So once we have the beginnings of keyword research done, like I said, we'll start to identify what are the ones that are really relevant to the services that we provide. So maybe something like a poppy flower Halloween costume doesn't make sense. How many subscribers does Poppy have? I'm not even sure who Poppy is. But things like flower subscription, flower subscription, and San Diego florists are very relevant. And so these are terms that we would want to optimize for. We can also lean on competitive data when we're conducting keyword research. So rather than starting with a seed set of keywords, we might take a competitor like Sage Sisters and then see what keywords they are performing really well for, because that could also be very relevant to our business as well. So a lot of these are very branded: Sage Sisters, Sage Flowers, Kingston, Ohio, Sage North Park. Those aren't going to be relevant for our business, but something like peonies, which is just a type of flower, is going to be very relevant for us, especially if that is a flower that we supply. Okay, and then how do we leverage that keyword research now that we've identified the terms that are going to be valuable to us and that are relevant? We want to make sure that we're placing them in some key areas within the website itself. And one of the most important areas is the title tag. And so when you're looking at, I keep moving this picture. I actually don't know. Can you guys see the zoom, the zoom tiles floating, or is that hidden on your view? I keep having to move you guys around. But the title tag, when you're in a search results page, we call that a SERP. The title tag is what's usually this blue text that we see here. And that's actually a heavily weighted SEO factor. If there's a keyword that you want to rank for a certain page, you do want to make sure that that keyword is included in that page's title tag. And then the meta description is kind of like your organic ad copy. So we see these ads at the top of the slide here. And then the 3 listings at the bottom that don't have that ad square, these are our organic listings. And the meta descriptions, typically when you indicate them on your website, Google will pull in that meta description and show it as your organic ad copy on the search engine result page. There are some limitations to the meta description. For example, the best practice is to only have this be like 160 characters, including spaces. Otherwise, you might have that text get cut off like you see in these 2 examples at the bottom here, which is not a full sentence or idea that readers can see. They might be enticed to click through so they can find out more, but more than likely they want to click on the result where they know what to expect after they click through.
So
One
Beth,
thing that,
I'm
sure.
so sorry to interrupt. I just want to pop back to a couple of things because I think you're like, this is actually what I really want to talk about. And I wasn't sure where you were going to go, but I wanted to go back a couple of steps to point out a couple of things. Number one, I wanted to illustrate the difference between branded and non-branded terms. So for the benefit of my team, when we talk about like soft touch dental, for example, soft touch dental is a branded term. And you might do like a pay-per-click campaign, pay-per-click separate than SEO, around people searching for soft touch dental so it comes to the top. And you also would want to do campaigns on Google search for implants, dentistry, general dentistry, emergency, all that kind of stuff. But those type of like non-branded keywords are the SEO pieces. And we're looking for these keywords to plug into the website for that on-page SEO. And then Jasmine, what I wanted you to talk about too is like this competitive data. They're probably all wondering like, where did you get this? Well, it's really easy and you just got to set it up. So can you talk a little bit about how you get this data and how you conduct this research and through Google and using what tools?
Yeah, sure. So for the keyword research, the screenshots that you'll see here, we are using primarily SEMrush or SEMrush. I've heard it described both ways. There is also Google AdWords Keyword Planner, and that is one that Elevated used for years and years. But that tool has been going through some changes, and we find that we're actually able to get a larger set of keywords when we're using a third-party tool like SEMrush instead. So SEMrush has, their tool is called Keyword Magic Tool. And like I said, you can just enter a seed phrase and it will pull up additional related keywords. AdWords Keyword Planner works in a similar way. I actually sent out, I hope you guys got it, but alongside the invitation for today's Zoom meeting, the calendar invitation, I followed up with a zip file that has a lot of resources in there. So I do have a lot of tools that can be used for keyword research here. Answer the Public is one that's more good for content topic ideas. It brings up questions that people ask around a keyword. Keyword Planner, Google's AdWords Keyword Planner is the one that I was just talking about. Moz has a keyword tool as well, and SEMrush is my personal favorite for keyword research. All of these tools also, most of these tools can also be leveraged for competitive data, so that instead of entering a keyword, you would actually enter the competitor's domain. And these tools can show you what keywords that domain is ranking for. You can also do it on a page-by-page basis. So if you drop in a URL, it will pull up. And I think I can, as long as no one is using our SEMrush account right now, I should be able to do this. So, What was that client example that you had mentioned, Amber? Dental implants?
Yeah, dental implants. I mean, I love the native Poppy example. I think that's perfect. I mean, my dog's name is Poppy. So when you're like, how many followers does Poppy have on Instagram? I'm like, oh
You
my,
were like 11,000.
it's just perfect. But no, I think that's a great example. It even probably makes a little bit more sense because it's like flowers, brand name. It's very simple. We all get
Mhm.
flowers.
Yeah. Yeah, so understanding what those keywords are. Here's Keyword Magic Tool in SEMrush. You can see here all I did was enter the keyword and it's bringing up a bunch of other related terms sorted by volume.
We're
What I
still,
like about SEMrush is that, oh,
we're still seeing just your PowerPoint. Can you share your desktop with us as opposed to
yeah,
the screen?
I just realized that. Resume share. Okay, good. So here you can see all the keywords. What I like about this tool is that it also groups all of the results into smaller subgroups based on additional words that are included. So if you're performing keyword research for your client that does dental implants and they have a page that's providing information on whether they accept insurance, this tool makes it really easy for you to just see dental implants insurance, and then you can gather the keyword research for that page as well. And then when we are, it's a little slow here, but when we are conducting competitive research, SEMrush has this down. It's actually under competitive research. You can just go to domain overview.
Jasmine, I think it's like really zoomed in to a small window
Oh,
on the share, so we're only seeing like a really small portion of the screen for some reason.
that is
You want to like
strange.
reshare like just the desktop? That might work. Awesome tools though. I was just about to ask where these charts were coming from. I have a bit of like experience in Google Analytics, um, so that was like interesting.
Yeah, SEMrush is I'm probably in SEMrush every single day. Can I move this so that it's not, yes. Sorry, that toolbar was getting in the way of me being able to switch between tabs, shopsagesisters.com. And so this is how we can also conduct competitive research, is using a tool and going into a domain overview. Something like SEMrush is going to be able to show us how many keywords they're ranking for, how many backlinks they're getting. Oh, backlinks is going to be another story. So if you guys ever want to invite me over for a part 2, just let me know. But when we're looking at organic keywords, we can see here what they're ranking for. If they're running paid ads, there are also some tools that can show us that as well. And I think it will also show you how much visibility or how much spend they're spending on those ads. Well, this is a little bit slow, but SEMrush is my favorite tool. In the resources that I shared with you guys, I was trying to share this earlier, but it probably wasn't showing. I have a lot of those listed with the links as well. And I think there should be details on whether these tools are free, paid, or if they're free up to a limit.
And I'll distribute this zip file. She sent it to the hello@AF Marketing account. So I'll
Okay.
send it out to everybody so you guys have the benefit of them. And just to double down on SEMrush, it's what we've used in the past. It's a couple $100 like per site that you sign up for and you get economy of scale. But it's one of those things like that's an investment for the client to make so that you can do the best research possible. Jasmine, one last thing before I let you loose again. SEO practices are ongoing with a maintenance package for a website, but what's the right time for a business to start hiring somebody for SEO?
Ooh, that is a good one. I would say if organic is driving most of their traffic to the site, and if they are, that is such a good question. I don't ever want to tell any of my clients to move their SEO in-house. But if their spend on their SEO service is, it's kind of eating up their budget, and they have, I would say once they have an understanding of what they need to do, then they can start bringing that in-house. I know that's something that we have done on the Elevated side. As much as I love all of our clients and I want to work with them forever, some of them only want to hire us on for maybe however long it takes for them to get a hang of it. And then they'll hire us on for consulting hours instead of a monthly retainer. But yeah, that's a big question. And I'd love to ponder that over. I haven't thought about it too much, Amber, but I will ponder that over and I'll let you know when I have a more concrete answer.
I have a quick
Okay,
question.
sure.
So how long does it take to kind of, let's say like you start with a new client and you're, optimizing their SEO and everything, like how long does it usually take to get into that groove of knowing like, okay, these are the keywords that work for this client, and then like, we have to range around these and get comfortable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so if we're ever starting with a brand new website, has never been published before, the domain has absolutely no history, there's no content, and depending on how competitive a keyword is, if it's not too competitive, we would say, hey, give us like 2 months and you'll start to get visibility for some keywords. And when we say you'll get visibility, we mean you could start ranking on page 10 for a keyword. But that's also, you have to understand that the types of the type of traffic that you're going to be getting on page 10 is nowhere near the type of traffic that you'd be earning if you're on page 1. But yeah, so 2 months you can start getting visibility. And then if you're trying to get to a #1 position for a very, very competitive keyword, we have a client right now who's in the dirt bike motocross equipment space, and they want to outrank Oakley for sunglasses, and we're like, okay, good luck. I will tell you right now, you might not ever.
So I'm assuming it gets more expensive, like the more competitive they want to like move up, right?
Yeah, clients might not like to hear that it's gonna cost them more money, but usually that's it. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of resources, whether those resources are going to be creating content to develop on your page or creating more links to build up the authority of your website.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Okay, so let's get into content. Top funnel content ideation. I think this is something that a lot of you guys expressed interest in. Were those questions around how do we know what type of content to build? Did you guys have other specific questions? So one of the things that we've been seeing over the past 2 years is that search engines are tending to prefer longer form content versus short. When I first started in SEO, when we would do blog content for any of our clients, this was usually coming out to 500 or 600 words. But now we're seeing that search engines are liking longer form content that could be up to 1,000 words, that could be 3,000 words, because these are the types of content that is going to provide a lot of information to the readers. But search engines are not just looking at word counts, they're also looking at the way that copy is structured across a page, because they want it to be not only helpful, but enjoyable for the user to consume all of that content. So here's a design consideration, because I know that that was a concern that you guys had brought up too. One of the phrases that we hear a lot in SEO is that content is king. And that is true, just because if we don't have content, then we don't have opportunities to sprinkle in the keywords that we want to go after, or synonyms for those keywords, or even discuss relevant topics that Google understands are related to the keywords that we want to go after. So we absolutely, absolutely need content for SEO to be successful. One of the things, for example, that would never work for a client, we've had clients who've come to us and we have clients who work in the CBD space and they want to rank for CBD benefits. They don't have any page that talks about CBD benefits. They have a CBD oil page, they have a CBD balm page, but they don't have anything that talks about CBD benefits. And we say, you're never going to rank for that. You need to make the content. And then again, that content is going to be very, very competitive because CBD is super hot right now. And so if they build a page and it's only 200 words long, then we have to go back and tell them that's never going to rank. And this is another another great example of where competitive research is going to come into mind, because a lot of clients don't want to do the work unless you show them that other people are doing it and it's working out really well for them. So let me pull up my content tools. Whoops. So if you have a client who's new in the CBD space, they want to rank for a lot of keywords within CBD, then you can start to conduct topic research. And SEMrush has this topic research tool that will provide you with content ideas based on web articles that are already earning a lot of traffic, getting a lot of visibility around that topic, and then also based on the search volume for queries or questions that include that topic within. This usually isn't that slow.
Honestly, it's because we're on Zoom and it just like lags so bad. It takes so much bandwidth to be on video that whenever I have something that's like web, it's like this, so don't worry.
Okay, so it might take a while for the actual articles to generate, but here you're already seeing the cards. If you're looking for CBD, Google understands that there's a lot of search volume behind CBD oil. Maybe you want to generate topics around that. Google is also understanding that CBD has a high relation to uses for multiple sclerosis, anxiety disorder, blood pressure. So these are all potential topics that can be used to develop blog content or resources for a client who's in the CBD space, selling products that are targeted towards treating some of these diseases. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. And so that is when we're considering clients who understand and are accepting that long form content is going to be needed. Long form content doesn't need to exist on a service or product page. Like I said, it can exist in a blog or in a resource area. We understand that especially on e-commerce sites, a lot of brands don't like to be very word heavy, but it is still very important for there to be SEO content. So on a page like, and I will just bring up our client 100%. We recently had to advise them to include the keyword goggle on one of their top pages because they wanted to rank for mountain bike goggles. But they actually didn't use the word goggle hardly anywhere on their page. Wow, you're not kidding, Amber. This really is like super slow. They weren't using the keyword goggle anywhere on their page. They weren't super open to having us add content modules. They have a couple of modules on their page already. This was probably the only instance that they had previously. And so we were able to compromise and within the existing blocks that they had, just insert some of the keywords onto the page. They also previously weren't using the keyword in these areas. It used to just say the product name itself, so racecraft, strata, youth, and we advised them to insert goggles onto the page just because the more keyword utilization we have, the better. And we have seen positive performance improvements on this page since then. That change was made just last month. And so yeah, when we're thinking about design, there are ways to get the keywords or the copy on the page without having to include just a heavy block of text that might look ugly to some people, especially when they're considering design and branding. Okay, so our on-page optimization cheat sheet. Keyword strategy, you want to identify what your target pages are, qualify the keywords for those pages, or discover what the keyword opportunities for those pages are based on keyword research and competitive data. Once you have that keyword research, you can create title tags and meta descriptions that are going to convert and help to improve your rankings. And then when it comes to on-page content, consider who your audience is, what types of content they're interested in, use a keyword research tool to identify what topics are going to be worth developing, and then keep in mind structural and formatting considerations. I actually didn't talk about that one yet. Structural and formatting considerations for your copy. I wish I had an example at the top of my head, but long form content, like I was saying, when we have really, really long blocks of text, even though that content might be very, very helpful for users, if we don't have headers breaking it up, then that could actually become very boring to users and they won't have the patience to read through it. So inserting media into your content is going to make it more exciting for users and provide a better experience for them. Google understands that pages that have more elements to them likely mean that a lot more time was invested in creating that page and that content. And then they are also looking at metrics from on the analytics side, like bounce rate, time on page, in determining SEO performance as well.
If I could, Jasmine, I'd like to add a couple of things to Jasmine's point about like long form text. I would say a sloppy example of a good attempt at that is the AF marketing or the intern kit, basically sales page. The reason I say that is because literally that could be like a whole flippin' wall of text, like just in paragraph by paragraph. But what I aimed to do was to create different sections and like have a video and then bullet points and then a call to action and then a this and then a this, and all of it is keyworded around, and this is not research-based keywording, it's keywording around what people I think are searching for. If they are like, you know, how to hire an intern or how to start an intern team, I made sure to like incorporate that all within the text. It's a very long form. And then I want to make it really like you can use like NLP, like neuro-linguistic programming techniques to connect with people emotionally so that they actually feel like they want to read the page so that they can stay on that page longer and then it ranks better. Okay. So what Jasmine's talking about, and this is what I was kind of trying to explain about what SEO really is, it's a hybrid of research and strategy. Doing research and then giving strategy, doing research, giving strategy, and implementation. I love what you were saying about like implementing like, you know, the different or trying different titles on those products like goggles as opposed to glasses or whatever so that they'll rank better, whatever that is. But this is really important for you guys to understand is that SEO is a super integrated piece of a bigger marketing puzzle. So in order to be successful in SEO, Jasmine's going to need to coordinate with web developers, for example, to make sure that the keywords are integrated in the H1 tags and the meta tags of the site when it's getting built. She needs to make sure that she's coordinating with copywriters to make sure the copywriters are making search engine optimized content that relates to the keywords she did research on, right? And then also that could be from a strategy perspective of partnering with your PR firm to make sure that your PR team is putting out content that's relatable or that's hot or crafting stories around what's going on and then getting those backlinks to point back to your site. Because what she's talking about, like creating content, this is very much organic media. Okay. So there's kind of two delineations in marketing. There's paid and organic. And even though you have to pay for the SEO research and strategy, it falls under that organic category because it's creating the content for SEO, right? Paid, you're paying for ads. She also needs to coordinate with the ads team to make sure that the pay-per-click ads coordinate with the landing pages that exist that go along with the search terms that she's researching. Are you guys seeing how this all kind of like flywheels together? So her job as a strategist, and I always say this, is as a strategist, you're the conductor of the orchestra. So she knows the research in her head, and then she has to make sure that everybody's doing what they need to do so that the symphony sounds good. Are we tracking on this? Jasmine, do you want to add anything to that?
Oh, my role sounds a lot more impressive when you put it like that.
No, you have a very.
I do it every day, so it's just second nature.
And so I want to just like like recognize you for that. Like, you're so good at it. You do it every day. You're like, oh, it's old hat, whatever. But for us, this is not something that we specialize in. This is something everybody on my team has said they want an understanding of. And you're like, you know, the Wizard of Oz behind the veil. Like, you're doing it all. It's no big deal. But what you do truly is coordinating all these teams. And it's very impressive because you're diving so deep into like the technical side of this. It's like, we really got to give you credit where credit's due.
Thank you. Thank you. So I know we're here until 3. Oh, look at that. We were able to get through a lot of these. I did fly through a lot of them really quickly. H1 tags, it sounds like you guys already know it from Amber just throwing the phrase out. So you guys are super familiar with header tags. But yes, with the on-page content, we do want to make sure that we're structuring it using H1 tags where appropriate or other headers. One of the best practices is that we typically only want one H1 tag on a page. Otherwise, it's like putting 2 titles on a chapter and having Google decide which one they like best. It's not ideal. And then other opportunities for optimization include alt image tags. So any images that are appearing on a page is associating that with text. Usually that text is going to be descriptive of the image, but we can also work it to describe how it relates to the information or text copy that's being on the page. That way that it has an SEO implication as well. But we do want to make sure it's visually descriptive because that's an ADA compliance concern. Which isn't strictly SEO related, but we usually have to play nice together.
So that doesn't, like, how do I put this? Having the alt image tag, does that affect the SEO at all in terms of, like, let's say you had a keyword that was, I don't know, bass guitar case, and if you hadn't written bass guitar case at all on the page, could that tag be used for SEO or no?
The tag can be used for SEO because search engines are going to be reading the entire code of the page itself. So the more instances of a relevant keyword that you have occurring, the more that Google is going to understand that that term is relevant and that you should be ranking for it. So it's not as if you're going to face a penalty if you're not using alt image tag, but operate with the understanding that your competitors are probably using every opportunity they have to rank above you. And so you should not let an opportunity go to waste.
Okay.
So I want to say one more thing on that too. She touched on ADA compliance, and that's actually a huge issue right now in web development. I don't know that we've talked about that, but because you guys know there's like people out there that will go to like a Walgreens and they'll be like, oh my God, this Walgreens doesn't have, you know, the right wheelchair ramp, and then they sue Walgreens. There's people that are out there doing that on the internet as well. So they're looking for like ADA compliance misses so that they can go after websites or companies that own the websites rather, to litigate and basically get a settlement in order to say like you're not ADA compliant, meaning that if I was, you know, lacking the visual site or whatever, I need to be able to navigate the website with those alt tags. However, like if we think about Boucher Interiors, for example, her entire website is photos, right? It's all gallery images. So if we have a really niche market, like an interior designer in Ridgewood, New Jersey, that does traditional design, we need to make sure that every single image on her site is tagged traditional interior design for Ridgewood, New Jersey, traditional interior design for, you know, Hackensack, whatever, and like make sure that we're tagging all those images because they can show up in search results. And we want somebody to see an image and be like, that's a beautiful design, because they're searching for interiors. They want to see an image on Google search result, right? And then it clicks them through to the website. So let's go ahead. I'd love to like hear you guys' questions. Like, what do you want Jasmine to dive deeper into?
Sorry.
Abigail, go for it.
Okay. I just have like a general question, but I was wondering like what it was like for you building a team under you when you were like younger and like new to the company. And then how you like dealt with that because you were younger and like with confidence and stuff like that.
That's a really good question, and thank you for asking it. It's actually something that I still have to face because I'm 30 and I don't think I look it. I'm not trying to be big-headed about it, but But yeah, it is very difficult, and it still is. When I was first building the team underneath me, my first hire was actually someone that I had gone to college with, and he was older than me in college, and that was an interesting dynamic because of his age. He felt like he had some seniority over me, and really just having to assert myself as his senior, but with grace. Like I'm not here because I think I'm better than you. I'm here because I've been here a little bit longer. I know a little bit more, and I want to get you acclimated to what we expect from you in this position and in this role. And I'm here to help you learn as much as I can. And if you have feedback for me and how I can better teach you, if there's a way that you absorb information better, let me know. And I think just being really honest, and showing up and being flexible is always helpful.
Oh, Abigail, did you have anything
Oh,
else?
I was just gonna say like thank you for answering that. And yeah.
Um, cool. Hi. So thank you so much for this deep dive on SEO. I know there's a lot of components to it, and um, like rather than diving into one specific technical question, I want to ask um, about something that you touched on a little bit, which was, and something that Spatika had asked as well, which was uh, producing results in growth for clients,
Mhm.
and that challenge and what that time frame looks like. You said a few months. Once you have a new client, that time will take to have SEO really start to build and like see results from it. Something as like social media strategists at AF Marketing, that we get a lot from our clients is like they want immediate feedback and immediate results. So do you also have to deal with that in SEO as well? Like how is that in the SEO realm?
It's difficult because everybody wants immediate gratification. Everyone wants immediate results, but SEO is slow, and that's just how it is. One of the nice things about SEO is that we we ultimately don't control what the search engines do. We understand their algorithms as best we can, but Google's not out there saying, hey, here are all the factors in our algorithm, and this is how you can rank number one. Google is so vague, and they always just say, make the content, do the best you can, serve your customers. And that's really nice, but it's also not the most helpful for SEOs like me. One thing that we always tell our clients up front from the beginning, is that we can't guarantee results. We can't promise how soon your results will come. We offer monitoring and reports on a monthly basis. When we start a campaign, we usually start with a minimum 3-month engagement, because that's the minimum time that we have to say, hey, we did the work. That's enough time for search engines to see the work that we've done, and for them to tweak the search engine results, and for those results to stabilize from there. So that's kind of a general window that we like to give, from when we start kind of overhauling an SEO campaign, is about 3 months. And then when we're looking at metrics, with SEO, we're usually looking at rankings and then impressions and clicks, because that's what's going to be bringing in traffic to the site. So at its most basic, SEO is getting more organic traffic into the site. When we're getting into, being a truly successful SEO campaign, it's about getting the qualified traffic into the site and having that traffic convert. But at its most basic level, we want to increase rankings. Have a higher quantity of keywords that we're getting visibility for. The keywords that we are ranking, we want to push them up into higher positions, because higher positions are going to bring in more traffic. So the more rankings we have, the more impressions we get. The higher rankings we have, the more impressions we get. The more impressions we have, the more click-throughs that we can potentially earn. So those are the metrics that we're typically tracking. If we have identified which keywords are like the biggest targets or the biggest drivers of organic traffic, then we'll usually track those specifically. Search Console is a really, really good tool, especially if Google is the primary search engine that's bringing traffic into your site. because that will show you which keywords every single one of your URLs is getting visibility for. And you can get pretty granular with that and understand how well a keyword has been performing for a specific URL over time. And you can also track, if you've made changes to a specific page, how are those changes affecting your keyword performance?
Amazing. And just one last quick little question. So you mentioned tracking initial impression to all the way through click through purchase or whatever else, end goal, whatever they have, right? Do you see those results, like the conversion rate between one phase to another of a click happen immediately, or is it more gradual over time as the SEO takes hold and you find better keywords and things like that, if that makes sense?
Can you repeat your question? I'm not sure if I was
Yeah.
following.
Yeah. So is there a point in which does SEO improve over time, continuously, or is it
Yeah, okay.
really, really good?
Yeah, so one of the ways that we kind of measure how well the campaign is doing is, like I said, overnight you're not going to go from ranking page. Actually, this could happen overnight, but it's rare. But the performance you won't see, it's not typically like you're ranking 81 and then you're ranking number 5 for a keyword. What we usually see is that you'll start to get visibility really low for certain keywords, related keywords typically. And then we'll see a spike in impressions before we start to see a spike in click-throughs. So typically, like I said, as the rankings improve, the impressions increase. Or something that we'll see sometimes too is that your average ranking for a page might drop, but your impressions spike. And that one could happen in the case that you are now getting visibility for a large set of keywords, but all of those keywords are getting visibility at a very low position. And then over time, as you start to develop your relevance for a set of keywords, it's going to make it easier for you to rank for new keywords that are related to that set.
You just decoded my question, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. Sorry, it was so cryptic. That was exactly what I was looking for.
No, that was a really good question. Thank you.
I want to just jump in really quickly. I know Emily has a call to jump on right at 3, but Jasmine, do you have a couple minutes to stay over, 5 minutes over with us?
Yeah.
That would be epic. So if anybody else needs to drop off at 3, by all means. I just wanted to have you touch on too, because I think it goes with Zach's question of I love your conversation about setting expectations with the client moving, when engaging in a new business relationship. That's important always. What types of investments are your clients making in SEO management for setup and then ongoing for maintenance?
It's really unfortunate that right now what we're experiencing is a lot of clients really just want to get the setup, and then they think that that's all they need. And I think, depending on what team you have in-house, they might be able to manage that. But, just knowing on our end, if you've hired Elevated to do your SEO, you're already hiring more than one person. So if you don't have a team in-house equipped to do it, you might not do it as well as we would do it for you. Sorry, I lost your question, Amber.
No, that's exactly where I wanted you to go, because I think that that's one of the things that SEO sounds like setup, and it sounds like one thing you do one time and then set it and forget it, but it's that ongoing content creation and tweaking and research that continues to get you to grow in those rankings. So what does that look like cost-wise for your clients when they're making an investment? Is there a range? Is different services? Do you have monthly maintenance retainers? What does that look like for your clients?
Yeah, there's definitely a range. I would say depending on the size of the website too, and how many pages we're trying to manage on the organic side. If you're like a one-page website, that's probably going to be really low, but we're also probably going to recommend that you grow your website. So our smallest clients and our smallest contracts are probably coming in at $3,500 a month, and that's actually lower than what I am comfortable with. I would say for any website, I would say for a single page that you want to maintain, my ideal budget would be $4,000 a month. And that's because we do want to do, yes, the initial setup, but also to make sure that that page continues to perform well, is that we need to do constant outreach. And so outreach is a fancy way of saying link building, earning backlinks, or, and backlinks are essentially like citations on the web. You do a paper, an academic research paper, you'll have your bibliography or your works cited. And search engines work kind of like that. The more papers that they have that are citing a page, a website, a resource, the higher authority that resource has. And so on the web, the more backlinks you have, the higher authority your website is going to have. So you can build a website, you can optimize it one time and be done with it. And now you have this website floating out in space, but no one's linked to it. No one really knows that it's there. If you search for it, it might come up in Google, but it might come up really low. And if you want Google to consider it more authoritative, to give it more weighting, impacts, ranking, performance, then you want to start earning those links. And those links cost money. It costs time and money to create the content, to reach out to the publishers, to earn the placement.
It's like street cred. So basically like doing backlinks and stuff like that is earning your street cred on the internet by getting placements that make you sound legit. Other questions?
I have a quick question. So you mentioned how Google like doesn't spell out, oh, this is how our algorithm works. Is my audio okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes it's iffy. So where do you find out like the trends? Like, is it through that one site, SEM? I can't remember what it's called, but Rush, or are you basing it off of what you're seeing from your clients and your content and how that's performing, or how do you figure out like
what the factors are? There are some organizations that actually on a yearly basis conduct a ranking factors report. I can't remember if it's SEMrush or Moz that does one. It might be Moz, but every year they do a SEO ranking factors report, and they look at over 100 on-page signals and off-page signals. So they're looking at, almost every HTML element that a page can have, and seeing if that correlates to rankings. And so they'll look at websites, they'll look at a keyword, and then they'll say, okay, if the keyword appears in the title tag, in the front of the title tag, or if it appears at the end of the title tag, if it appears in the title tag twice, and they'll assess what that correlation is. And based on those correlations is how we get our data. It's not quite data, it's still a guess, because correlation is not causation, but it's the best guess we have. And so that's what we work with. So ranking report studies like that, and then a lot of guess and checking, which clients might not like to hear, but that is what it is.
Yeah, the study of marketing really is like a A/B test on absolutely everything. I'll give you guys one more recommendation. There's a newsletter called Stacked Marketing that I get every single day, and they have really good information of just like those things, like when Yoast comes out with a new report, or there's some new trends in the algorithm, or somebody leaked something from some whatever. I feel like I really know what's going on in the search and PPC world, and also with SEO because of that newsletter. The other thing I just wanted to double down on too is one of the things, and Jasmine, I'd love your feedback on this, we've seen in the last couple of years, is that page performance and speed and load time has greatly impacted search results, which didn't really impact as heavily before. So as things have changed over time, now Google's not just looking for things like content, but they're looking like, does it take you 10 seconds to load your hero image? Because if it does, we're not going to rank your site higher. And so knowing that trend, Jasmine again acts as the conductor and has to tell the web development team, hey, your PHP code is like way out of date. Like, go fix all of this, remove all the extra JavaScript, and like make this site load faster so that my SEO will work, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, it's so true. I think I feel like in the past 2 years, Google has really been rolling out a bunch of algorithm updates. I think maybe even starting in 2019, I feel like I was writing up like a memo to go out to the whole agency like every 2 months of how Google is changing and what's new. And it's funny, in the marketing world, in the search world, anytime Google announces everything, everyone scrambles. But they kind of have to, because that's how big search is. And if an algorithm update drops and your rankings tank, you might not ever get those rankings back until they roll out another algorithm update. So yeah, we do have to be very agile. I do think it was one of the questions, and maybe it was your question, Amber, of like, what do you do when an algorithm update happens? Is, well, first we have to isolate that a performance issue is actually caused by an algorithm update. And then we try to understand what did that algorithm update, what changed in the algorithm that now they're considering this page that hopefully has remained unchanged that it should perform less or at a lower rate than it was before. So it is kind of a science. In a perfect world or in an ideal scenario, we would have as few variables because the more that we can isolate what the change is, the more we can understand how the algorithm is reacting. And so that's why in search, forums are a really big thing. Daily blogs are really important, like what is it, SE Journal. I actually don't know the names of them because they're just bookmarked, and I just click them and read them on my RSS feed. But yeah, just keeping up every day with what's changing, and then trying to stay ahead of whether a ranking fluctuation is normal or temporal, or if this is going to be a lasting impact that we have to prepare for and then coordinate with other channels to try to recoup traffic that we might lose because Google has changed its mind.
I actually have one last question. I can always email it to you if like you have to.
Oh no, we're good.
I was gonna ask, so as far as SEO, does that also involve like negating keywords that, for example, like worst flower shop or, like that type of thing? Does that also involve getting rid of like that showing up under those keywords, basically?
Okay, so I think what you're talking about is closer to online reputation management. So if someone did search worst flower shop and native poppy popped up and that was my client, they wouldn't like that. So reputation management, we consider negative SEO. So what we want to do in those cases is, instead of promoting the results, we want to suppress them. And the way that we can do that is by encouraging the ranking of a different asset. So if unfortunately native poppy is ranking for worst flower shop, then maybe we create an asset, a microsite that's called worstflowershops.com, and we list some of the absolute worst flower shops in the world, and we try to optimize that website to perform well for that keyword. But maybe we want to make 10 websites like that so that native poppy doesn't show up on page 1 at all. Is that close to what you were asking?
Yeah. I was just wondering whether it was more of like, if there was a way to kind of make sure that that website doesn't show up under those words without like having to create a website. Like if there was some sort of filter that, people can either like pay for or do something that like makes sure that they don't show up under that.
Ooh, no, unfortunately not. There's not an option for that. I think if there was, Google would have a lot of lawsuits to answer for.
However, I do want to add something into that's another consideration. And this is where like the fun part comes in, the strategy, right? So one of the trends that we've seen over the past couple of years in software is when, again, the whole study of marketing is putting yourself in the customer's shoes. What is the customer going to be looking for, Googling, searching when they need the solution? And what we know in software is when you get into a category of software, let's just say project management software, for example, if I'm the person at my company that has to make the decision of, are we going to go with Trello, Asana, Monday, or ClickUp? What am I going to do? I'm going to search Monday versus ClickUp. What is better? And we see all of these websites, these that are owned by ClickUp or Monday, that will promote results and create microsites that are ClickUp versus Monday, who's better? And if you go to the Monday version of it, it's like Monday's better. And if you go to the ClickUp version, they are going to sell you on all the points of why ClickUp's better. And then they're going to have ClickUp versus Trello, ClickUp versus Asana, ClickUp versus whatever other program. And so they're using these creative strategies that where, you might not, you want to search like best project management software. Okay, maybe ClickUp comes up, but like what we want to do at that point too, going back to Jasmine's point, is that the SEO manager for ClickUp needs to make sure that ClickUp gets included in every roundup of like top 10 best project management tools in 2021 from Business Insider and Forbes and, Stacked or whatever other outlets that there are, so that those search results come up and that better, it links back. So again, it's all super holistic, but there are some strategies like that. And then Spatika, the other thing I wanted to touch on with that is it's more of a pay-per-click strategy, and it's like a black hat pay-per-click strategy where you can actually buy branded keywords, or I don't actually know if you can buy branded. I might retract that. I'm not sure. I think you can. But you can basically show up in search results for what other people might be searching for. For example, we know that there's a dentist called, I think, Crown Point Dentistry, that shows up every time as an ad every time you search soft touch dental. So that's a pay-per-click strategy. So they're paying to have ads show up for the targeted keyword soft touch dental. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I just thought that was crazy that people can actually like form websites so that it comes up under, those, just so your own website doesn't come up.
Yep.
I would have never thought that to be the method. It's so interesting.
There's a lot of messed up things that can be done. I've heard stories of someone purchasing like an adult website that has really bad metrics, bad history for search, and 301ing it. So redirecting that whole domain into a competitor to tank the performance of the competitor. And some of that stuff is really hard for, entities like Google to track. It's a cool world. It's a cool, cruel world.
Any other questions, y'all? Cool. All right. Well, Jasmine, I am so appreciative that you took time out of your day to do this for us. Like, I cannot, like, you are the SEO magician, like literally the Wizard of Oz, like just such a download. I will distribute what you sent to everybody. If Spatika, Zach, Abby, and Shannon, you guys can stay on and we'll let Jasmine get on with her day. Just like, thank you again so much. I'm so appreciative.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Again, this is so much more fun than the client work that I have to do within the next 2 hours. And you guys feel free, if you have any quick questions, you can reach out to me. Amber, you can give them my email. I know, I feel like someone has added me on LinkedIn recently, but feel free, if you guys are on LinkedIn, add me there too. It was really great talking with you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was amazing.
Bye.
Yeah. Thanks so much.